So we're skipping 9.2 and headed to 9.3, and you should have graph paper for today's assignment. We're going to be talking about circles, actually circles in the coordinate plane. Let's start off with the general form for the equation of a circle. It looks like x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals radius squared. As you can probably guess, its proof is going to come from the Pythagorean theorem. Look, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. But for our purposes, we're just going to work with the formula. The h and the k give you the center of the circle. The r gives you the radius. So for example 1, let's use that formula and give me the equation of a circle that has its center at 2, 3, and its radius at 5. Okay, this is your h and your k, h and k. This is the r. Pause the video and see if you can write it on your own before I actually even show you how to do it. All right, you should have come up with x minus 2 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 5 squared, which is 25. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about how you would graph this one. If you were asked to graph it, you would put a point on 2, 3, and then you would count out in at least the 4 directions that it's pretty easy to do so, 5 units, and then make the circle. I am not a good artist, but let's attempt that. Putting my center on 2, 3, and I need a radius of 5, and I'm going to do all 4 north, south, east, west direction radii. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if I really wanted to be accurate, I could use a compass and open it this direction. But for the purpose of what we're doing, I'm just going to eyeball it, and it's probably going to look a little bit squished. But you'll get something like that. All right, you should also be able to come up with an equation when you're just given a graph. So let's work backwards on example 2. On example 2, let's set up a problem putting a point on 3, 0 and 1, -2. All right, I'm gonna not very good, but I'm going to try to do a circle like this. So to come up with the equation, you're going to need to know the center, and you're going to need to know the radius. Well, we don't exactly know the radius, but we sure know the center. The center is easy. That's 3, 0. Now let's think about it. These are radii here, but I don't know how long they are. Can you see that all I would need to do is the distance formula? Picking 2 points, let's do this one and this one. So I want to know the distance from 3, 0 to 1, -2. And that's going to give me the radius. 3 minus 1 squared, 0 minus -2 squared. This is going to be a 4 plus 4, or the square root of 8. Now, we can approximate it, but remember, when we put it back into the equation, we're going to be squaring it, so we'll get a much more accurate answer if we don't do that. So the equation would be x minus, remember the hk comes from the center, so x minus 3 squared, and then y minus 0 squared, and then the square root of 8 squared. Now, of course, we can simplify that to x minus 3 quantity squared plus just a y squared equals an 8. All right, let's do one more. I think I can fit it on this piece of graph paper. So for example 3, you are to come up with the equation that has a center at -3, -1, and then it has a point on the circle of -4, -4. Now, that's actually what we just did in example 2, but example 2, it was drawn. Here's your center, and here's a point on the circle. So there's the center. For the point, you're going to have to figure out the distance between these two in order to get the radius. So the radius would be -3 minus -4 squared plus -1 minus -4 squared. This turns into a -3 plus 4, which is going to be a +1 squared, or 1. This one turns into a -1 plus 4, or a 3 squared, which is 9. So our radius is going to be the square root of 10. Now, finishing up with the equation of the circle, it would be x minus -3, in other words, plus 3 squared, and then y minus -1, in other words, y plus 1 squared, equals the square root of 10 squared, which is just 10. So that's the type of problems you're going to be doing. If we look real quick at the book, you're going to see that this first group, they give you an equation, and you're just going to pick out the center and the radius from there. Then you're going to have a couple where you have to write the equation based on a graph. And then you're going to finish up with some like we just did, where you're given the radius and the center. You know, I'm thinking I should go back and do one more with you. Let's look at one more. Let's do, I can fit it on the back. We don't need a graph. For example 4, if I give you an equation of x squared plus y minus 8 squared equals 100. From there, you should be able to pick out what the center is and what the radius is. So remember, this is the radius squared. So the radius had to have been 10 to get the 100. The center comes from your hk. Remember, this would be x minus h squared and y minus k squared. So you can see here that you're not subtracting anything. So the x is 0. And then the y, can you see it's going to be 8? All right, so go ahead and give the homework a try. Once you've answered the questions, then you're ready to check them.